The days after our argument felt hollow, as though the life I had carefully built was unraveling thread by thread. Ray and I went through the motions of normalcy, but it was just that, motions, empty gestures that felt brittle and fragile. Every word I spoke carried the weight of my unspoken fears. Every silence screamed with unanswered questions. I replayed that night over and over in my mind. I dissected each word we had exchanged, each expression on his face, trying to pinpoint the moment when everything had shifted. The familiar shadow of self-doubt loomed larger than ever, whispering cruel truths that I didn't want to hear, that I was too sensitive, too emotional, too much for him, that my feelings were a burden he could no longer bear. One evening, after yet another quiet dinner filled with shallow conversation, I decided to try again. I couldn't let things end like this, not without one last effort. Even if it meant exposing myself to more pain, I had to know if there was something left to salvage. We sat on the couch, the soft glow of the lamps casting long shadows across the room. The air felt heavy, thick with unspoken tension. I hesitated, unsure of how to begin, my heart pounding in my chest. "Ray," I said finally, my voice tentative. The distance between us felt vast, like an ocean I couldn't bridge. "I think we need to talk about what's happening between us." He sighed, leaning forward and resting his elbows on his knees. His posture was tense, his shoulders hunched under the weight of what he knew was coming.
"Joelle, we've been over this,"
he said, his tone weary.
"I'm trying, but it feels like no matter what I do, it's not enough for you."
The words stung, but I pushed past the hurt, my voice trembling as I replied, "It's not about you doing something wrong. It's about how I feel, how I need to feel understood and connected. I know I'm emotional, and I know I see the world differently, but that doesn't mean my feelings aren't valid." Ray rubbed his temples, his frustration etched into every line of his face.
"But that's the problem, Joelle. I don't know how to meet you there. I can't always understand what you're feeling, and when I don't, you pull away. It's exhausting."
The word hit me like a blow. Exhausting. Was that what I had become to him? My chest tightened, tears threatening to spill over as I struggled to find the words to respond. "I never wanted to be a burden to you," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I just wanted us to share something real, something deep. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was never enough for you either." His eyes softened at my words, but there was a weariness in them that cut deeper than any sharp remark could.
"That's not what I'm saying, Joelle. I care about you, but I don't think we're good for each other. We're too different."
His words lingered in the air, each one sinking into me like a stone. I had feared this moment for weeks, but hearing it aloud made it unbearable. For me, endings weren't just losses, they were unravelings. This wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the tearing apart of the dreams and emotions I had poured into us, piece by piece. "I thought we could figure it out," I said, my voice breaking as tears streamed down my face. "I thought love was enough." Ray shook his head, his expression filled with regret.
"Sometimes it's not."
I turned away, unable to meet his gaze any longer. My mind was a whirlwind of negative thoughts, each one sharper than the last. I told myself I was too much, too emotional, too complex, too hard to love. I blamed myself for everything, as if my very existence was the cause of our downfall. That night, he packed up the few things he had left at my apartment. His goodbye was quiet, almost clinical, as though neither of us could bear to add more weight to what was already unbearably heavy. When the door closed behind him, I sank to the floor, my sobs breaking the oppressive silence. The days that followed were a blur of forced smiles and half-hearted attempts to function. I threw myself into my work, but even my clients seemed to sense the sadness I tried so hard to hide. I stopped going to yoga classes, avoided my friends, and spent my evenings alone, replaying the relationship in my mind like a broken record. For me, the loss of love wasn't just an ache, it was an annihilation. It felt like losing a piece of my heart, a part of myself I could never get back. I questioned everything, my values, my emotions, my dreams. The world I had once seen in vivid, beautiful colors now seemed muted, drained of life. One evening, weeks after the breakup, I sat on my balcony, a blanket wrapped around my shoulders as the city lights twinkled in the distance. The wildflowers I had once cherished were now wilted, forgotten in the corner of my apartment. I felt empty, as though the vibrant world I had dreamed of had collapsed into a dull gray void. I clutched my journal in my lap, flipping through pages filled with hopes and reflections I had written during my time with Ray. The words felt foreign, as though they belonged to someone else. A version of myself who still believed in love, in connection, in the beauty of shared dreams. But that version of me was gone, replaced by someone who felt small, broken, and lost. My Pisces heart, so full of hope and possibility, now retreated into escapism. I found myself building fantasies where Ray and I had worked it out, where I wasn't so painfully alone. But even in those dreams, the ache lingered, a constant reminder of what was real. The end of my relationship with Ray wasn't just the loss of a partner. It was the loss of a piece of my soul. As I stared out at the city, tears streaming down my face, I wondered if I would ever find the strength to believe in love again. For now, all I had was the quiet, the stars above, and the weight of my own emotions, a vast ocean I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to cross.